On October 30th, 2018, at Hazleton Federal Prison in West Virginia, the guards were making their usual rounds when they suddenly came across a scene resembling a nightmare. An elderly prisoner, 89 years old, lay on the ground, his eyes almost gouged out, and his face battered by a metal lock, leaving his features unrecognizable. Shockingly, this was no ordinary inmate. This was Whitey Bulger, one of the most dangerous criminals in American history, responsible for over 11 murders. Bulger had been on the FBI's most wanted list and had managed to evade capture for more than 16 years. What made it even worse was that he had not operated alone. The FBI itself, which had placed a bounty of over $2 million on his head, had been protecting him, feeding him information, and making his criminal operations easier. Because of this protection, Bulger had been able to traffic drugs, bully people, and commit murder for over 40 years without anyone touching him. Our story begins on September 3rd, 1929, in South Boston, a working-class neighborhood known as Southie. A child was born to a carpenter and a cleaning lady. This child was named James Joseph Bulger. Because he had blonde hair, the locals nicknamed him Whitey. The Bulger family was extremely poor. His mother worked all day to help raise 6 children. Among them were 2 sons whose futures would diverge drastically: Whitey Bulger, the future criminal, and William Bulger, who would later become a prominent politician and Senate president in Massachusetts. 6 years later, another child was born in the same neighborhood, just a few streets away. His name was John Connolly, to an Irish working-class family. Like Bulger, Connolly experienced poverty and hardship growing up in South Boston, a tight-knit neighborhood with its own unspoken rules. Loyalty came before law, family before state, and nothing about the neighborhood should leave its boundaries. The 2 boys grew up just blocks apart, but their paths would take dramatically different directions. One would become the most dangerous criminal in Boston's history, while the other would rise to a high-ranking position in the FBI. At 14, while most boys were playing street games, Whitey Bulger was already making a name for himself in the criminal world. He joined gangs and progressed from petty theft to armed robbery. However, Bulger followed one important rule: protect your own first. This rule made him popular among the neighborhood youth because he defended them from bullies without being asked. John Connolly, 6 years younger than Bulger, looked up to him as a sort of superhero, a tough man who feared no one. One day, a group of youths cornered Connolly in an alley. Bulger happened to pass by, saw what was happening, and without hesitation intervened to save Connolly, not asking questions about who was wrong or what had happened. From that moment on, a bond of loyalty formed between them, one that would last for years. This loyalty would eventually change things in ways no one could have imagined in all of America. By the 1960s, both boys had grown into men, but each had taken a different path. Bulger had become fully immersed in crime, committing bank robberies, dealing drugs, and doing whatever shady activity necessary to earn money. In 1956, he was arrested for armed robbery. The charges were serious, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Bulger moved between several prisons because he tried to escape multiple times and broke internal prison rules. Eventually, he ended up in Alcatraz, the most feared prison in America, reserved for the most dangerous criminals. There, Bulger encountered a different level of criminal: mafia leaders, major drug traffickers, and professional killers. He learned from them, observed, and studied. Alcatraz became, for him, a school for organized crime rather than a punishment. In 1965, Bulger was released on parole after nearly 10 years, despite his 20-year sentence. However, he did not leave prison as a reformed man. He had participated in a secret CIA-funded experiment known as MK Ultra, designed to test the effects of drugs, especially LSD, on prisoners' minds for the purpose of behavioral control. Bulger was repeatedly exposed to LSD, believing he was assisting in medical research. But in reality, he was a guinea pig without protection or guarantees. He later wrote that he felt like a puppet in the hands of the intelligence agencies. This experience, however, allowed him to be released early and gave him new knowledge to build a criminal empire. Meanwhile, John Connolly graduated from Boston University and entered the FBI Academy. In 1968, he became a federal agent, moving between states such as New York and Chicago, working on different cases, but always keeping Boston in mind. His goal was to dismantle the Italian mafia, which controlled organized crime in the area, particularly the patriarchal crime family. By the 1970s, Bulger had returned to South Boston with a hardened mindset, gradually rising in the Winter Hill Gang, the most powerful Irish criminal organization in Boston at the time. They operated behind the scenes, controlling gambling, money lending, and money laundering. Bulger began building relationships not just with criminals, but also with corrupt police officers, informants, and federal officials. His plan was not to merely be a member of Winter Hill. He intended to take full control of it. At the same time, John Connolly, the new FBI agent in Boston, was under pressure to strike at the heart of the Italian mafia. To succeed, he needed an insider source from within the streets, someone willing to sell information at a price that both sides needed each other, but no direct request could be made. In 1975, a meeting was arranged in a secure location between Connolly and Bulger. Connolly warned Bulger that the Italian mafia was feeding information about him to the FBI, and if he didn't act first, he would become a target. Bulger listened but did not respond, driving away without saying a word. Soon after, one of Bulger's men was shot by the Italian mafia. That same day, Connolly called Bulger to initiate the official agreement. From that moment, Bulger became the FBI's golden informant, providing intelligence on rivals while gaining protection to expand his criminal empire. By September 30th, 1975, James Whitey Bulger was officially entered into FBI informant files under a special code name reserved for top-tier sources. The deal quickly proved its worth. Within months, Bulger began providing critical intelligence to the FBI, particularly on the patriarchal crime family. He supplied information about gambling operations and loan sharking, which allowed the FBI to arrest key figures, while Bulger simultaneously expanded his own criminal network. By 1981, Bulger's operations had become brazen. He murdered Deborah Davis, a woman who unknowingly learned sensitive information about his FBI dealings. Over the years, he continued orchestrating murders while keeping his status as an informant, effectively turning the FBI into an unknowing partner in his crimes. Internal corruption compounded the problem. Some FBI agents, including Connolly and his supervisor John Morris, accepted bribes from Bulger to provide protection and intelligence. These agents became complicit in his criminal operations, while the reports and files that highlighted Bulger as a valuable source were often inflated or falsified to justify their continued support. By the 1990s, investigative journalists and a new generation of FBI agents began to uncover the extent of Bulger, his protected criminal empire. In December 1994, a secret indictment was issued against him. On December 23, 1994, Connolly warned Bulger to flee. Bulger disappeared with his longtime companion, Catherine Grieg, leaving behind his Boston apartment and a trail of false identities and large sums of hidden cash. In January 1995, Bulger was placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. While his associates were arrested, Bulger remained at large, living quietly in Santa Monica, California, under the names Charles and Carol Gasco. Finally, in 2011, the FBI located him. On August 12, 2013, Bulger was convicted on 31 counts, including involvement in 11 murders. He received 2 consecutive life sentences plus 5 additional years. In October 2018, at age 89, Bulger was transferred to Hazleton Federal Prison in West Virginia. Despite his age and reputation, he was placed with other inmates. Less than 12 hours after his arrival, he was brutally beaten to death by fellow prisoners. The story of Whitey Bulger remains a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and corruption, showing how criminal enterprise and law enforcement can become dangerously intertwined. The FBI's collusion allowed a violent criminal to operate with impunity, destroying countless lives and undermining justice, proving that the line between right and wrong must always remain clear.